All right. Hope everybody's New Year is off to an awesome start and you had a great holiday. We had a pretty awesome holiday. It was low key, except for we did stuff nonstop and we actually went to Disney for a couple days just on a whim, just went out. We just went for it. Last minute. I think I've heard Let It Go 600 times, but it's a great song. So I'm not that mad about it. I was pleasantly surprised. The whole experience. I actually went in there was kind of like, I went before when I was like in college and didn't have as much fun, but now that I've got kids, it's like fun again, and they're free under 3, so that's why we did it. But they had a blast, so it was great. But now we're ready to jump back into the market. So real quick video here. I'm just going to go over what's going on in January and what the trends are looking like here, just kind of anecdotally in the field. So this is going to encompass all of Western PA, which is Allegheny County and the adjacent counties that we work in: Beaver, Butler, Westmoreland, Washington, Allegheny. I don't know if I said that, and Washington. Did I say all those? Washington, Beaver, Butler, Allegheny, Westmoreland. That's 5. So all of the stats that I go through, that will include all of those counties. Looking at sale price first, it's pretty cyclical, as you can see over the last 5 years on the right here. It goes up and down. It goes up in the hot months typically and down in the colder months just because the demand's higher and people want to get out there and find a house. Highest price typically is around June, and the lowest price average and median is in January, which is exactly where we are right now. So we're at the trough of that cyclicality of sale price. And I'm taking the median because it's rid of the outliers. For the last 12 months, you can see that it's appreciated. It's kind of flat. Pittsburgh's sort of like a muted market, which means the highs aren't as high and the lows aren't as low as some of these like cities that really encounter huge bubbles like New York, LA. And then if you go north to, Canada, you get into Toronto, those markets they have big swings up and down. Pittsburgh's smooth and steady, which I love about it. And it's just over the past 12 months, we've seen from January to January about a 10% appreciation, which is much higher than the 5% appreciation in price, median price, for the national average. Now, if you get to zoom into Pittsburgh itself, Pittsburgh's closer to that national average, but outside of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh included, that whole conglomerate is much higher, around 10%. So it's a great place to invest if you're thinking about it. Inventory, this is how we track supply. So that was demand, one of the ways we track demand. This is one of the ways we track supply. It just is the number of listings available. This is the number of active listings over the past 12 months and the past 5 years. So in the past 12 months, we've seen an uptick, which is awesome because if you remember a couple of years ago, inventory was extremely low, which means demand was extremely high, which means if you were a buyer, you didn't have a lot of choices. And if you did find one, it was like a multiple offer situation and it was difficult to get. So we're kind of starting to even out between buyers and sellers. And we're seeing an increase in inventory over the past 12 months. Over the past 12 years too, we're seeing this kind of U curve where it goes up and down just like sale price does with demand and supply. But we're starting to see an overall increase. And that's what we're seeing here in January. Over the past 12 months, we've seen a 17% increase in inventory. So pretty significant. And we're actually seeing that in the field. There are more choices. Now, some of this is due to stale listings kind of sitting around, but there are good listings out there that buyers are finding, and they're seeming to find houses a little quicker now, which is great. So if you're a buyer, think through that. Now might be a time to jump in. Days on market, this is another way we measure demand. The longer a house sits, the less demand, in general it has. And if you look at the market as a whole, the average days on market performs the same way. So the longer it sits, the lower the demand, and the shorter it sits, the faster it goes, the higher the demand is. Over the past 12 months, you can see that U curve. That's expected. However, this year versus last year, we have seen a little bit longer days on market, which means we're getting more deeper into the supply side. So it's becoming less of a seller's market than it was last year is basically what that means. Some things that we've seen. New Year's surge is delayed. Now we had a lot of weather, which isn't typical over the past like 3 or 4 years. We haven't seen a ton of snow. This year we did see a good bit. So it was a little bit slower, and typically like right out of the gate in January 1, everybody's out looking for stuff. January 2. January 2 through 10, that's like a real hot string of days. But didn't see that as much this year. We're starting to see it week 2 and 3 in January and 4. So be prepared for that. That is coming. I think this weekend is going to be killer. Buyers are re-engaged. They're ready to go. And one of the reasons is the uncertainty is just decreasing. There's, in addition to the weather, the rates, we kind of know they're going to be steady around 6 to 7, high 6s, low 7s-ish, probably for the next 6 months-ish. It's all speculative, so I'm saying ish. But economists put their money where their mouth is, and they're thinking it's probably going to remain in this range, at least, for the next 6 to 12 months. There's also the election. So the inauguration just happened, and people are kind of starting to ease back into life of, yes, there's still uncertainty, but it's a little less uncertain than before the inauguration. And all eyes are on the economic data. That really tells us that it's a leading indicator for where we think rates are going to be. All right, so tips for buying. If you are going out and there's snow on the ground and you're thinking winter, 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 you're looking at hills and you're thinking like, this is an awesome sled riding hill. You're not thinking about air conditioning. You're potentially not even looking at the roof, like if there's snow on the roof. So what I always tell my buyers is picture yourself in the opposite season. So if you're in the winter like we are, you're going to think about the summer. It's tough to do, but you'll get the hang of it, and I'll help you do that while we're out there. Take note of the furnace too. This is a good opportunity. It's the coldest month of the year, or one of them. And so if it's humming and you're there the whole time and it's just blasting, but it's not getting any warmer in the house, or it sounds weird, maybe there's an insulation problem, maybe there's a ducting issue or a furnace issue. It's a big expense, something to take note of, and it's a good opportunity to do it at this time of year. And then finally, seems self-explanatory, but dressing warm for the yard tour is actually pretty important. And sometimes you kind of forget it. You're thinking like, oh, it's going to be nice and cozy in the house, which it is usually, but you don't want to shortchange yourself for the yard portion, because that's also important when you're buying a house. So make sure you're dressing for the weather to walk around for maybe potentially 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how much you care about the yard. All right, selling tips. Number 1, clear your driveway. You don't want snow and ice in your driveway while you're actively having showings. People are going to be tracking snow in your house, even though we ask people to take their shoes off or wear booties. But it's just more risk. You have potential safety hazard, and it just doesn't look as inviting. Consider weather for photos. Like if there's a snow coming up and you have a listing photo, we have an appointment next week or something, and we have between Tuesday and Friday, and snow's coming on Friday. Let's shoot for Tuesday before the snow hits. That way we get a nice, beautiful snowless shot of your house. The snow doesn't look bad. You don't want to avoid taking photos if there's snow on it, but if you can avoid it altogether and you have the opportunity to do that, it's worth considering. Check inventory in your area. A lot of times I'll hear people ask like, hey, you told us the market goes up in the spring and down in the winter. Should we wait? Now, sometimes you can, sometimes you should, especially if you have all year to do it and you're not in a huge rush. And there's lots of other houses in your market like your house. But on the flip side, in the winter months, there's less inventory. So your house does have a great opportunity to stand out. If, for instance, we have a listing coming up in Murraysville here, where it's the only house in its price range of its type right now. So everybody who wants a house in this area at that price range is going to be checking the house out. So that makes sense for that type of house. It's definitely not like a deal breaker or a non-starter if it's January. It might be to your benefit. So check the inventory. All right, we're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions at all, send them over to shipleymercerteam@gmail.com or hit me or Melissa up directly. And stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing this every month, and Melissa's got a whole bunch of fun stuff planned, and we've got a whole bunch of other joint stuff planned throughout the year. We're really excited about it, and it's looking like it's going to be a good year. So stay tuned, and if you have any questions, shoot them over. If you want to buy or sell, of course, hit us up, and we'll catch you later.